When Fallen Angels Fly, Patty Loveless.
Patty Loveless turned 68 in January 2025, and while she's largely stepped away from the spotlight, her legendary voice and impact on country music remain unforgettable. With 5 number-one hits, multiple Grammy Awards, and a 2023 induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Loveless built one of the most respected careers in Nashville. But there's one relationship that has always intrigued fans: her connection with Vince Gill. For decades, people have speculated about these two icons who seemed destined to make magic together. What Patty has revealed over the years about Vince might surprise you, especially when you learn about what almost happened but never did. The truth involves fangirl moments, emotional breakdowns, and an album that would have changed country music history.
My favorite thing to notice about today is how hard each of us have struggled to get up those stairs. Oh, Brother George taught us all how to sing with a broken heart, better than anybody that ever lived.
There's this moment from George Jones's funeral back in 2013 that country fans still talk about like it happened yesterday. Patty Loveless stood on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry House next to Vince Gill, about to perform Go Rest High on That Mountain. The place was filled with the biggest names in country music: Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood, and even former First Lady Laura Bush. It wasn't just another tribute. It felt like the entire country world had gathered to say goodbye to one of their own. When the music started, everything seemed calm. Vince began singing, his voice steady at first. But a few lines in, you could hear something change. His voice cracked, his shoulders trembled. Within seconds, he was crying so hard he could barely keep going. It wasn't staged or planned. He was just gone emotionally. And when the camera panned across the audience, you could see people wiping their eyes too. The whole room felt that grief move through it. And yet, Patty Loveless didn't waver. She stayed grounded, her voice clear, strong, and full. Every note carried weight. When Vince couldn't keep up, she quietly reached over, placed a hand on his shoulder, and just kept going. That one small gesture, steady and gentle, said everything about her. She didn't try to take over the moment. She just supported him, let him have the space to fall apart, and kept the song alive. When Vince could no longer sing, he turned to his guitar, channeling everything he couldn't say into that solo. Patty stayed locked in. No big theatrics, no forced emotion, just presence, pure and simple. Later on, when Patty talked about it, she admitted something honest. She thought she'd be the one to lose it. She assumed Vince would be the strong one. Turns out, it was the other way around. And when Vince told her what had broken him that day, it said everything about how deeply they connected through music. He said that the moment she started singing, that was when he lost it completely. That moment at George Jones's funeral revealed something profound about their partnership, a connection that went deeper than just two voices blending well together. But how did this partnership develop? And why, despite their obvious chemistry, did they spend decades singing on each other's records instead of together?
Music Hall of Fame, Patty Loveless. Now you're in trouble.
I know I am.
Long before Patty Loveless and Vince Gill ever shared a stage or blended their voices on a record, she was already a fan. Not the polite kind of fan who simply respects another artist's work. Patty was the real deal. The kind who'd buy every tape, rewind favorite songs, and try to match the harmonies while driving alone. In the early years of her career, she talked openly about how much she admired Vince. In one interview from the early 1990s, she said she used to listen to his music on repeat, singing along and trying to find the right harmony lines. She wasn't shy about it. She loved his tone, his range, and that effortless way his voice carried emotion. She said it reminded her a bit of Steve Perry from Journey, but with a country soul. There was something about Vince's voice that just sounded pure, golden even. By the time Patty signed with MCA Records in 1985, her admiration for Vince wasn't a secret. Her producer, Tony Brown, knew all about it. So when they were recording her first single, Lonely Days, Lonely Nights, he decided to bring Vince in to sing background vocals. For Patty, that was huge. It wasn't two equals collaborating. At that point, Vince was already a respected artist and studio musician, while Patty was still trying to find her footing. She later admitted she could barely stay calm during the session. Think about it. Her hero was right there in the booth, adding harmonies to her song. She said she almost lost control from excitement. That says a lot about who she was then. Humble, honest, and genuinely in awe of the people she admired. That first recording session ended up being more than just a career milestone. It was the start of something special. Patty and Vince discovered their voices fit together perfectly. His smooth tenor and her warm, mountain-edge tone blended in a way that didn't sound like anyone else. Vince later said their harmonies had something magical about them, and it's true. You can hear it in every song they ever did together. After that first song, they kept crossing paths. Patty sang on Vince's breakout hit When I Call Your Name, which became one of his defining songs. He, in turn, sang on If My Heart Had Windows, one of Patty's early hits that helped her break into the mainstream. And that was just the beginning. Over the years, Vince ended up singing on more than 15 of her records. They weren't just collaborators. They were each other's secret ingredient. When Vince wanted warmth and emotion, he called Patty. When Patty needed depth or balance, she called Vince. Fans who listened closely could hear it. The subtle blend of two artists who understood each other musically without needing to say a word. But many people never realized how closely their careers were linked. Their partnership never felt forced or overly commercial. It was natural. Two artists who respected each other and quietly helped shape each other's sound. That's part of what makes their story so fascinating. It wasn't about charts or fame. It was about chemistry, the kind that just happens when two voices meet at the right time. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, one that will surprise even a longtime country fan. Back in the early 1990s, Vince Gill and Patty Loveless were quietly planning something big. They wanted to record a full duet album together, not just a song or two, an entire record. The kind of old-school collaboration you'd expect from country duos like Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn or George Jones and Tammy Wynette. By that point, they'd already built this unspoken musical chemistry. Every time they sang together, something clicked. It wasn't forced. Their voices just fit. Vince's smooth, emotional tone and Patty's strong, soulful edge. So when talk of a duet album came up, everyone in their circle seemed to think it made perfect sense. In a 1995 interview, Patty shared that the project had come close to happening, closer than most people realized. They were already picking out songs. They were sitting in meetings with MCA Records, working through the details. Both artists were signed to MCA at the time, and the label loved the idea. To them, it looked like a sure thing. Two stars at the top of their game, teaming up for a record that could define the decade. The plan was to release the album in the spring of 1992. Vince was riding the success of When I Call Your Name, the song that had made him a household name in country music. Patti, on her end, was having her moment too. Her voice had become one of the most powerful on country radio, and critics were calling her one of the genre's best pure vocalists. It was the perfect storm: momentum, timing, and mutual respect all lining up. Then, just like that, everything changed. Patti decided to leave MCA and sign with Epic Records. She asked to be released from her contract, and once that happened, the duet project unraveled. Vince stayed with MCA, which later became MCA Nashville, while Patti moved forward with her new label. And because of that split, the album they'd been planning simply couldn't move forward. It wasn't about creative differences or bad blood. It was just one of those industry moments where timing slipped away. Everyone had schedules, contracts, and competing priorities, and the window closed before they could get back to it. When you think about what country music lost there, it's hard not to feel a little wistful. Two voices that blended so naturally. Two artists with mutual admiration, both at the top of their creative powers, and all the pieces were in place. The songs, the studio plans, the label backing. It could have been the defining duet record of the early 90s, right alongside the greats. Instead, they just kept doing what they'd always done, slipping into each other's albums, quietly creating moments that fans would discover years later. Patti's harmonies still lifted Vince's biggest songs. Vince's voice kept showing up behind hers, adding warmth and weight to her sound. They didn't get the shared spotlight, but their connection never really went away. And while that dream record never made it to shelves, it left behind one of those what-if moments that still fascinates fans decades later. Because as it turns out, Vince had a way of describing Patti's voice and the way she made him feel in the studio that no one had ever quite heard before.
Where Patti and I sang for George, and I completely fell apart. I lost it, more than I've ever lost it performing in my life. And a lot of people thought it was probably the moment and my friendship with George, and a lot of it was, but the truth of that is if you ever watch that again, if you ever watch the video of it, when Patti started singing with me and I heard her voice, that's what took me under, that's what took me down. And that voice has always done that to me for the last 35, 36 years, something like that. And
in 2015, Vince Gill sat down for an interview with the Houston Press and finally put into words what he'd felt about working with Patti Loveless for 3 decades. His comments reveal just how special he considered their partnership. Vince described Patti as one of his most seamless-sounding partners. He explained that while he'd recorded award-winning duets with major stars like Reba McEntire and Dolly Parton, there was something different about singing with Patti. He said there was something magical about our voices together that he was always drawn to. But here's what's surprising. Despite this magical chemistry, Vince admitted they only did one real duet together over all those years, My Kind of Woman, My Kind of Man, released in 1999, a full 14 years after they first worked together. Everything else was background vocals and harmonies on each other's records. Vince tried to explain what made their voices work so well together. He compared their blend to famous brother duets like the Everly Brothers and the Loveless Brothers, saying those sounded amazing because they were seamless and like one person. That's what he heard when he and Patti sang together. Not two distinct voices competing, but one unified sound. He also contrasted their pairing with classic duos like Tammy Wynette and George Jones, who didn't sound anything alike, but created magic through their differences. Vince and Patti were the opposite. Their voices complemented each other so perfectly that they almost became indistinguishable. What Vince didn't say explicitly, but what comes through in every interview, is a sense of missed opportunity. Here were two artists with undeniable chemistry who spent decades as each other's favorite collaborators, yet they never fully capitalized on that partnership in the way they could have. There's another layer to the Patty Loveless and Vince Gill story that connects them in ways most fans don't realize.
It's all good, but...
Well, I got even with you because I can't tell you how many times you made me cry, darling, listening to you. I was like, oh, yes.
My grandma used to say, she said, son, if your eyes don't leak, your head won't swell. If your eyes leak, your head won't swell. That's it.
Before Patty Loveless ever stepped into a studio with Vince Gill, there was already a quiet connection between them, one neither of them knew existed yet. It started with a man named Emory Gordy Jr. He was Patty's producer back in the early days, long before she and Vince became known for those spine-tingling harmonies. Eventually, Emory became much more than her producer. He became her husband and lifelong creative partner. But here's where it gets interesting. Years before Emory began working with Patty, he was producing Vince Gill's early records over at RCA in the early 1980s. That means both Vince and Patty were, at different points, shaped by the same person. The same ear guiding their sound, the same studio philosophy, the same understanding of what made each of their voices special. Emory played a huge role in helping Vince find his sound back when he was still trying to break through. Then, a few years later, he helped Patty refine hers when she joined MCA. So, by the time Patty and Vince met to collaborate for the first time, they were already connected through this shared creative influence. They just didn't realize how deep that thread ran. When talk began in the early 1990s about the duet album that never happened, Emory was the natural choice to produce it. He knew both voices better than anyone. He had recorded Vince's smooth tenor and Patty's raw, emotional power separately. He knew how their tones would weave together and how to balance them so neither overshadowed the other. In a way, he was the bridge that made their musical connection possible. That's why the album's collapse wasn't just disappointing for fans. It was a missed moment for three people who genuinely understood how to bring out the best in one another. Over the years, Patty has been open about how deeply Vince's voice affects her. At George Jones's funeral, she mentioned how singing beside him can trigger something physical, how the blend of their voices can move her in ways she can't predict. She said, there's a quality in her voice, especially when paired with his, that brings out tears she can't always hold back. And that's what made their duets so powerful. They weren't about vocal perfection or showing off range. They were about connection. You could feel it in every line, like two people understanding something unspoken about each other. The emotion was always right there, raw and real. But there's something Patty eventually shared that pulled back the curtain even more, a glimpse into how she really felt about working with Vince all those years, and how much their connection still lingers beneath the surface. During a Country Music Cruise interview, she talked about how people often put her and Vince in the same category as Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn, like they were some kind of official duet team. But that wasn't really true. In all those years, they only recorded one official duet together. Everything else? Just background vocals on each other's songs. Still, Patty said something that explained why their connection always felt bigger than that. Singing with Vince, she said, was like singing with family. Their voices just locked in, naturally. No effort, no rehearsal tricks. It was something instinctive, the kind of blend you can't plan or fake. Either it exists or it doesn't, and with them, it just did. That comment alone told fans everything they needed to know about why their collaborations still stand out decades later. There was comfort between them, but also deep respect. Patty didn't sound like someone describing a musical coworker. She sounded like someone describing a rare kind of partnership, one that never needed labels to make sense. She's also been honest about the album that never happened back in 1992. Even years later, she'd bring it up with a kind of wistful tone, as if that project still lived somewhere in her imagination. It wasn't about regret exactly. more like unfinished business. She knew what that album could have meant for both of them and for country music as a whole. Fans can still hear it when she talks. That quiet awareness of what might have been if timing and label politics hadn't gotten in the way. Patty's reflections get even more moving when she talks about performing Go Rest High on That Mountain with Vince. They've done it at funerals, memorials, and tribute shows, moments that demanded both strength and tenderness. And it's almost always the same. Vince tries to get through it, but the emotion catches up to him. His voice cracks, his hands shake, and he can barely finish. And that's when Patty steps in. Her voice holds the song steady, anchoring the moment while still carrying all the grief in it. She's explained that the song hits Vince on several levels. It's about his brother, about Keith Whitley, about loss itself. And when her voice comes in, it seems to open something in him. It's not the sadness that breaks him. It's the honesty in her tone. There's something about the way she sings that makes the emotion too real to contain. Now, at 68, Patty doesn't perform much anymore. Her focus is on her home, especially with her husband Emery's health taking priority. But whenever she does step back on stage, fans hold out hope that it'll be with Vince. Because when those two sing together, it's not just nostalgia. It's a reminder of what country music used to sound like when it was built on heart and truth. Over the years, what Patty has revealed about Vince isn't flashy or headline-worthy. It's something far deeper, an honest portrait of respect, friendship, and creative trust. They were supposed to be the next great duet act, the kind people still talk about decades later. Instead, they became something even rarer. Two artists who built a quiet, unspoken legacy through harmony, support, and a kind of emotional understanding that words never fully capture. That duet album never happened, but maybe that's why their story still feels special. Because some partnerships don't need an album to prove what's already clear every time they sing together. If this story moved you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. There's so much more behind-the-scenes truth and untold country stories coming your way. You won't want to miss what's next.